Welcome, everyone, to A Call for Judgment. Today's show, I want to talk about a new movie from Netflix, more predictive programming, or I should say more desensitizing of society when it comes to the things and the technology that our government already has in place. They are using comedy to push this into people's faces so they get desensitized from the severity of these serious topics. And of course, one of them, why not bring this back into the limelight, is cloning, human cloning. Now, people out there are very, very dumbed down when it comes to the ability and the technology the government has. They think the only technology that exists is the technology that they reveal to us. But I'm going to show you the clips from this new trailer called They Cloned Tyrone, which is on Netflix, which is a comedy about cloning. And of course, ironically, right, especially the timing of it all, Jamie Foxx is one of the stars of the film, or is the star of the film, who many people believe is actually cloned, right? So very, very ironic. I had to edit this, lots of curse words. It's pretty amazing this day and age. They can put all these curses and stuff like that in the trailers. There might still be some in there, the way that it got chopped up. It's hard to even hear some of the stuff that's being said, but take a look at how they're desensitizing people to human cloning. Then we'll get into it, and I'll prove to you that it's actually real.
Slick, come on.
That make your spidey senses tingle.
I don't know what that was, but that wasn't me.
Somebody is conducting experiments on us.
What has happened?
I see this shit. Fuck no, they out here cloning.
That's right, that is the prevailing theory.
So you might have even noticed in the trailer that the elevator button happened to be an all-seeing eye, right? No coincidences there. Of course, we just see the eyeball all over the place. I guess it's an optometrist elevator to an optometrist get-together underground, right? And of course, underground, all these underground bunkers, people still think that that's a big conspiracy. They don't realize that all of our tax money has gone to building them an underground world where they go and they perform many rituals, many scientific experiments on, a lot of the humans on the surface who go missing. And then you go, oh, whatever happened? Oh, yeah, I heard there's 50 missing kids in Ohio, right? Which I covered over on the website, or all these kids that just seem to go missing. Well, where are they with all the CCTV cameras? A camera on every street corner. Everybody's got a phone on them. They can ping the phone, right? I don't know. People just still can go missing this day and age. Well, because they go underground, never to be seen from again. But everybody thinks it's some type of cold case story where, oh, they must have been dismembered and the body's all. No, a lot of these people are abducted. They're used for human experiments. They're used for human rituals. So people don't realize that stuff. But anyway, back to the trailer. So of course, they mentioned the all-seeing eye, the underground, but Jamie Foxx happens to be the star, like I said earlier, who just happened to go missing around this time. But here is the synopsis for the actual movie. A pulpy sci-fi mystery caper in which an unlikely trio investigates a series of eerie events, alerting them to a nefarious conspiracy lurking directly beneath their hood. Fontaine, a neighborhood drug dealer, is shot dead by rival Isaac, and then is very shocked to wake up in his bed the next morning unharmed. He and Slick Charles and Yo-Yo begin looking into the incident, and their search eventually leads them to a vast underground complex where a government-backed lab is performing experiments on the local black population. Realizing that he is an artificial clone controlled by Nixon, Fontaine initially feels despair, but decides he needs to stand up to these white institutional overlords for the sake of his neighborhood. So, of course, they use the racial undertones in that, right? White overlords. I mean, as if there's no black people who are involved in this. Of course there are. I've covered this before as well with the Bull and the Prince Albert Hall and all these, there's all sorts of Masonic secret societies of different races. They're working together to create this race war. They serve Lucifer. They don't see skin color, but they make the common man see skin color. And that's why they feed in this stuff into all these movies now where, of course, it's white overlords. I mean, that's fine. But the simple fact is that these people are all Satanists, and people in real life of any skin color, of every skin color, need to band together against this. It's the only way that we can actually stop it. But nobody will believe this stuff is real. Nobody will believe this type of technology is real because they've been dumbed down. And then they make movies like this, and they make comedy of it, so people actually even more so laugh it off about the notion of having this technology, where if people actually realized that the government could do this, they would stop it from happening because they would never allow the government to have this type of power. But we live in a dumbed down time period. Now you might say, well, how can you prove that this type of technology actually exists? Well, let me just show you a clip from Al Gore of Climate Change Hell Agenda, and Bill Clinton of the famous Clinton crime family, talking about in the 90s cloning, human cloning, how they have the ability to clone humans, and ethics apparently involved, as if, ethics are involved with cloning, and of course, ethics involved with the Clinton crime family. That's pretty funny, but take a listen.
Because we all realize we must strive to find the sometimes delicate but always crucial balance between our unending search for knowledge and doing what is safe and morally right. Ever since scientists in Scotland successfully cloned a sheep, an adult sheep, in February, the President and those of us who work with him, along with the rest of the nation, have grappled with the meaning and significance of the discovery, and the meaning and significance, of course, of the many scientific, safety, ethical, and religious implications presented by the question of the prospective possibility of cloning of human beings. No one, however, has deliberated more on this issue than the men and women who are responsible for the report being delivered today to President Clinton, the members of the National Bioethics Advisory Commission. Over the last 3 months, they worked on an extremely complex issue at an extremely fast pace.
As the Vice President has said, and all of us know, we live in an era of breathtaking scientific discovery. More and more, our future in the world depends upon advances in science and technology, and more, the scientific community will influence the course of the future and the lives that our children will lead in the new century that is upon us. As I said in my commencement address at Morgan State University last month, our scientific explorations must be guided by our commitment to human values, to the good of society, to our basic sense of right and wrong. Nothing makes the necessity of that moral obligation more clear than the troubling possibility that these new animal cloning techniques could be used to create a child. That is why I acted in March to ban the use of federal funds for cloning human beings and to urge the private sector to observe the ban voluntarily while we initiated a national dialogue on the risks and the responsibilities of such a possibility, and why I asked this commission to issue this report. For 3 months, the commission has rigorously explored the scientific, moral, and spiritual dimensions of human cloning. It has talked to leading scientists and religious leaders, to philosophers and families, to patient advocates, and to the general public. From many opinions and beliefs, as Dr. Shapiro said, one unanimous conclusion has emerged. Attempting to clone a human being is unacceptably dangerous to the child and morally unacceptable to our society. I believe strongly that this conclusion reflects a national consensus, and I believe personally that it is the right thing to do. Today, I am sending legislation to the Congress that prohibits anyone in either public or private sectors from using these techniques to create a child. Until the day I sign the legislation into law, the ban on federal funding I declared in March will remain in effect. And once again, I call upon the private sector to refrain voluntarily from using this technology to attempt to clone a human being. I want to make clear that there is nothing inherently immoral or wrong with these new techniques used for proper purposes. In fact, they hold the promise of revolutionary new medical treatments and life-saving cures to diseases like cystic fibrosis, diabetes, and cancer, to better crops and stronger livestock. This legislation, therefore, will not prohibit the use of these techniques to clone DNA in cells, and it will not ban the cloning of animals. What the legislation will do is to reaffirm our most cherished belief about the miracle of human life and the God-given individuality each person possesses. It will ensure that we do not fall prey to the temptation to replicate ourselves at the expense of those beliefs and the lives of innocent children we would produce. Finally, the legislation will ensure that we continue the national dialogue we began 3 months ago and will provide the nation and the Congress another opportunity to take a look at this issue in 5 years. To make sure that all our voices are heard as we explore human cloning, the legislation specifically requires the National Bioethics Advisory Commission to continue its study and report back in 4.5 years. At that time, we will decide how to proceed based on what has been accomplished and agreed upon and debated and discovered in the intervening period. Banning human cloning reflects our humanity. It is the right thing to do. Creating a child through this new method calls into question our most fundamental beliefs. It has the potential to threaten the sacred family bonds at the very core of our ideals and our society. At its worst, it could lead to misguided and malevolent attempts to select certain traits, even to create certain kinds of children, to make our children objects rather than cherished individuals. We are still a long way from understanding all the implications of the present discoveries, but it is our moral obligation to confront these issues as they arise and to act now to prevent abuse. Today, I hope other countries will see what we are doing and do the same, and I pledge to work with them to enforce similar bans around the world that reflect these values. Once again, let me say a heartfelt thank you on behalf of our entire nation to the National Bioethics Advisory Commission for the remarkable work you have done and the work you have agreed to continue doing in the coming years. Thank you very much.
So what more do you need to hear? I mean, if you're somebody who's skeptical of it, I mean, there's tons of stuff you could, research on it. But when it comes out of the mouth of a president, a liberal president, you would think that the liberal people would think maybe this type of technology does exist. But even if they found out it did exist, they would think it was a good thing, because that way their favorite celebrities like Lady Gaga, they could just make 50 of them instead of having one. And then they could make clones of Lady Barfbag and Miley Virus for people to take home into their own houses. That's how they think. That's how their hive mind thinks, instead of saying this is extremely dangerous. Obviously we know there's tons of doppelgangers out there. There's tons of clones. Lots of celebrities are indeed cloned. There's lots of channels that cover that type of stuff. I try to stay in the wheelhouse of faith and, many different things, but trying to show you as much as I possibly can. But there's some that specifically focus on those things, just like male to female, female to male, trans and Hollywood and that type of stuff, which is good for people to see. But it's very clear that there's many of these people out there, if not all, have clones already in place. You can look at the exact person who's supposedly running this country right now and compare pictures, which I've done in the past, before and after. It doesn't even look like the same guy. So you can speculate all you want, and people can go back and forth about, who is this guy a clone? Is that guy a clone? Is this a clone? Oh, that's crazy. The technology exists. There's no doubting it. And this is 30 years ago of Bill Clinton discussing this in Al Gore at the White House, on the lawn at the White House. Okay? What do you think the technology is now? Huh? This is before, that speech was given before cell phones were released to society. Like, not car phones, like literally cell phones were released to society. That was given then. Now look at what the cell phone has turned into from then, after that period, to now. So you don't think they have the ability to do this much faster, much more efficient? I mean, pretty scary, but again, they use comedy. They constantly talk about serious, real conspiracy, what they would call conspiracy, which are actual facts, which are documented things. And they continue, like Pentaverde or whatever with Mike Myers. I covered that. They put these things out there it's a method of mind control that people don't understand. When they start making light and using comedy on real topics, people's brains can never process those topics as actual real things. They try to make it this complete lunacy in the movie, the idea of it. You saw, in that they were even talking about in the trailer, putting it in the food, right? These are all things that are actually legitimate, but they make light of it, and everyone's laughing like, oh, it's in the Kentucky Fried Chicken. Oh, it's in the grapefruit. Of course, they make the racial undertones, and then they wonder why society has uses these racial types of ideologies all the time, these stereotypes. They're the ones who create the stereotypes, planted in the movies and all that stuff, and then they call regular people racist for making a joke about those types of things when they're the ones who are planting the seeds. So pretty incredible, the stuff that they get away with this day and age, but they've got everybody right in the palm of their hands. And this is the type of mind control that they use for it. So cloning is a big thing. We're going to see a lot more desensitizing in our society to it, because they're going to reveal all these things, right? They're going to continue to reveal, the stuff that we continually see them actually doing out in the open now, right? Like I've constantly been talking about what we're seeing with kids. I was talking about that, 7 years ago. People were like, there's no way that society's ever going to stand for that kind of stuff. Well, look how close we are to them, to seeing NAMBLA be glorified in our society, right? If you don't know what NAMBLA is, look it up. But I mean, you're going to have, adults and kids holding hands. You're going to think it's a son and a father, and it's not. Right? But they'll say, oh, it's consensual, right? And it'd be like, well, a 4-year-old can consent. Well, in this society, they're convincing people, yes, they're mind control. So this is just another mind control tactic, folks. The government even admits to it. The President of the United States at one point in time admitted to it, talking about ethics. Yeah, as if the government has any ethics at all, especially Bill Clinton. Pretty funny, isn't it? I thank everyone for being here. Hope you're doing well. God bless you and your families.